Merry Christmas. Yeah, oh, right, really? Seriously, no one's in the Christmas mood. Merry Christmas. Oh, that was really punto. So just wanted to spend a few minutes sharing with you. And Christmas is a happy time, so I've got quite a bleak story for you, just to really cheer you up. But we're going to get straight into the Word, if that's okay with you. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes. I want to talk to you a little bit about darkness. We're going to start by reading, or at least I'm going to start by reading Isaiah 9. Isaiah 9 is a super familiar story at Christmas time because it's a prophecy, a foretelling, a prediction, if you like, an expectation of the Messiah who's going to come. Messiah is the Savior of the world, and the Israelites, the people of God, have been waiting and waiting and waiting for this Messiah to come. And Isaiah writes about it, and I guess you'll be fairly familiar with some parts of this, so I'm going to just read it out now, and it'll come up on the screen. If you want to get it on your smartphone, it's Isaiah 9, and I'm reading from verse 2. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. For as in the day of Midian's defeat, you have shattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. Every warrior's boot used in battle and every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness. From that time on and forever, the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Not many Anglicans tonight. It's a good row at the front there, though. Well done, guys. Let's say a little prayer before I give some reflections about this. Lord Jesus, would you reveal yourself even this evening into the heart of every person here, that they might know that you are the great lover of our souls. And may my words honor you, Lord. Amen. So I wanted to talk a little bit about darkness. I wonder whether you're a big fan of sunrises like me. I love a sunrise. I absolutely adore them. For the last 3 years, actually I've been here a year, so 3 years before that, I've been traveling up. I traveled up to London every Monday. I would leave the home at 5 in the morning and I would get back home at 10 o'clock at night. So I had the privilege of seeing an enormous amount, often the sunrise on the train, and the sun set on the way back again. It's absolutely extraordinary, often over the sea and over the ocean. I don't know if you've done that train journey, but it can be breathtaking. Is there anybody here, we'll have a quick show of hands, who absolutely loves sunrises? Let's just have a quick show for sunrises. There's a few. Nice. Anybody here who hasn't ever seen a sunrise to their knowledge? That's pretty good. At the moment, you need to get up about 8:15, but often it can be like 5 in the morning or something like that. As I say, I'm an absolute fan. I just love it, looking at the horizon when it first breaks. It's extraordinary. We regularly go to St. Ives on holiday. I love being down in St. Ives. It's our favorite place. But necessarily, the sort of family like to do quite sedentary things. And this would wind me up a little bit, so I progressively started getting scowled at by my family, which is hilarious. I necessarily started to get up at like 6 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, so that I could do some exercise with the dog, and then otherwise I was just so irritable the whole day, and I was like, I want to go swimming, I want to do this, blah, 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 and they were like, tea shop. So I would go and walk with the dog first thing, 6 o'clock, and I saw some absolute corkers over the sea at St. Ives. And so I eventually said to the girls, when they were quite little, girls, you've got to see this. And Portia's like, there's no way. There's no way I'm getting up at that time, you're an idiot. But the girls are like, they're younger and more influenceable, and that's, if you can't do that as a parent, what can you do? So I force them, I encourage them to come with me. So they get up at 6 and they put on, now we had quite sort of, we didn't want to spend a lot of money on holiday, and so we were generally in February or October, half term. That was a little bit cheaper then, and so it's pretty cold. And they would get the full body suits on, and they would hit the beach, and we'd stand there in the dark. And they'd be like, Daddy, this is dreadful. Actually, that's not totally fair. They generally would start building sandcastles and stuff facing the wrong way, and I'd be like, it's going to come over here any minute. And they're like, there's nothing, Daddy, but this is a dam, and it's awesome. So we're doing this. I don't know if you've been there, but even now I can remember when they saw that particular sunrise. It was gobsmacking. There's a quiet that comes in darkness, isn't there? There's a stillness and it's quite cold. And you wait and you wait and you wait, and then you first see that first break of orange or a shade of red, and it starts to light up, all sort of myriad of colors. It's absolutely breathtaking. And then eventually you just see the start of the sun peek its head over the horizon. And you're like, yeah, it's on its way. And then things start to come alive. Have you noticed that? There's birds start to tweet a little bit, and there's a new life starting. And then it starts to get a little bit warmer. And the girls were distracted again, and they were digging again, but that's okay. It just moves me. I just absolutely love to see a sunrise. This story in Isaiah says, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. Guys, it's dark outside. It's really, really dark. And you might say, well, that's a little bit negative, Reuben. We're here at Christmas. We were hoping you'd cheer us up. But you see, the trouble is, if you don't know how dark it is in the world, you can't understand how great this light is. It's terrifyingly dark, actually. It might not be okay for us to pretend that everything's fine with us and therefore must be fine with everybody else. So to cheer you up on Christmas Eve, I've written you a little list of things I thought were fairly dark. Mental health has gone through the roof. It has, hasn't it? We've heard a lot about it, and rightly so. But anxiety and depression is rapidly increasing. There is terror and confusion about gender and sexuality. There is fear about being knifed or stabbed by terrorists. There's persecution of Christians who to this day die because they're a Christian or are imprisoned. The rate of addictions to drugs and alcohol are increasing in this very city. There is human trafficking, and even this year, 50 people found in a container who were being trafficked and died. There's human slavery, purportedly even in this city of ours. There's an increase in tribalism and partisan attitudes where we go, actually, I've got nothing to do with you. I'm more defined in who I am. There's an increase in violence. There's an increase in silencing people so they can't say what they think. There's an increase in individualism and this absorption in self to the loss of community. There's a rise in convenience abortion. There's a nihilistic attitude. There's a lynch mob mentality. There's abuse, both childhood and domestic. There's betrayal. There's knife crime in our cities. There's fear and there's poverty. There's hopelessness. There's self-harm more than ever known. There's suicide. There's apathy and there's inequality. It's dark. Genuinely is dark. And what dark does is it stifles life. It blurs things. It stops hope. It stops freedom. I don't know if you've ever sat in the dark. I do. I haven't got Netflix. You can see your hand, and if you turn the light out and you've got complete darkness, when you look at your hand, it's very quick before you discover that you can't quite remember how close your hand was. In fact, if you wait even longer thinking about your hand, you begin to wonder whether you had it closed or open. In fact, if you wait even longer when you're in darkness, you begin to wonder whether your hand ever existed. Have you ever sat in the dark for long enough to sort of get a sense of, I can't remember whether there's a chair there or not. Have you walked in and you're trying to guess where something is? This is what dark does, is it blurs form and it destroys things. Now, you may think that this is just some crazy Christian guy wanting to moan about how bleak things are to depress you. But I was looking in the New York Times, because of course we read the New York Times, don't we? And in September 2019, only just, someone was writing what an utter disgrace it was to bring a baby into this world, given the dreadful state that the world is in. It's irresponsible to have a child in this day and age. And the whole article was about this, and I love to read the comments because they're always entertaining, aren't they? And Tim Barras, if you're watching, hi, from North Carolina, he writes this. I think it's interesting. Check this out. It is unconscionable to think anyone has a right to bring more children into the world. For the human animal, the world is crumbling. We do not need one more child. What we need is for humanity itself to become extinct, because as super predators, we have created a world of indifference. There is no evidence that suggests humanity deserves to be here. 55 recommendations. That's a lot, actually. I don't read the New York Times, but I read a paper online, and I like to read the comments, and 55 is a really high recommendation. 55 people read that and thought, that's reasonable. Maybe he's right. Maybe the best thing that could happen is that we become extinct and obliterated. Maybe God, if God even exists, should destroy us and wipe us off the face of the earth. Here's Tim Barras again. Tim and Barras. See what I did there? Nice. We do not need one more child. And yet God says, we do need one more child. God's answer to darkness is not obliteration or extermination. It's not another flood. His answer to darkness is specifically, particularly to take a child, not just any child, the beloved child, his only begotten child, the heart of him, and put it right in the midst of the darkness. Because the answer to darkness is light. God doesn't turn his back, he turns towards. He doesn't put the Son in a position where we are triumphant, where we're at our best, our greatest, our successful, our victorious. He puts him in the middle of a desperate time of death and difficulty and darkness, because his answer to darkness is light. Isn't that beautiful? He sends a child. And we wade into the stable with our weapons on, our sword, maybe drawn. It's not really a sword, it's quite old-fashioned, isn't it? Maybe, I don't even know what people, like a pistol, pistols, or a machine gun. We wade in, I'm going to choose a rocket launcher. We wade into the stable with a rocket launcher and we think, oh, well, either I'm going to defeat this supposed king who's coming, or I'm going to join forces. And what we discover is that God sent a baby. So I go, oh, it's a baby. And I put my gun down and my weapons down. And I remember where I was once myself. Look, the nails are already formed. It's beautiful. Oh, new life, hope, a future ahead of her. Possibility, dreams. I remember what I've lost and what I had and who I really am. She empowers me and disarms me because it's a child. Thank you. It's Ruah, the Spirit of God. We might think, well, this was just a decision that God made at the time to try and sort out Herod because he was killing everybody, but it really wasn't. He was deciding this right at the very beginning. And in Genesis 1, he says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was empty and without form, and darkness covered the waters. It was empty and without form because of darkness. We've already talked about that. The Spirit of God hovered over the sea or over the waters. It's a bad translation. A much more accurate translation is the Spirit of God brooded over the waters. You see, brooding is what a hen does, doesn't it? I think that's the right creature when it sits on eggs and it's encouraging birth. Something's about to happen. Something's about to emerge. The Spirit of God broods. I wonder whether the Spirit of God brooded over Mary when something was about to happen. But right at the very beginning of the creation story, the Spirit of God broods over the waters. And then what? And God said, first word recorded by God. He's going to speak. It's important, your first words, isn't it? He's going to speak. He says, and God said, let there be light. His answer to darkness. Let there be light. The Holy Trinity, right at the beginning of time, his answer was light. A lot of people think, oh, that must have been the sun, but that came later, actually. If you carry on reading, the sun is created. You may say, oh, Reuben, you're on a fancy, and we like your wild fancies, but where are you going with this? You're obviously making all of this up. But John 1 says, his own creation story. In the beginning was the Word. He speaks about Jesus. A word, though, we've already heard the first word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of man. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. See, light creates life. It creates dynamics, forms, specifics, color, growth, emergence of beauty, possibility, hope. This is what light is. Light is the anathema, the opposite, the antithesis of darkness. This is the beautiful light, the great light that the people in darkness had seen. Finally, Jesus says to his followers, if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be born again. If you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must be born again. You see, we are supposed to be born as small babies in the midst of the darkness so that we can become hope and light and life to that darkness. Is it possible this Christmas, as you move around and you travel and you see different people, that you might enter darkness, that you might recognize the darkness that is within people and around people, and you might be bringers of light and life? How? The passage tells us. We will be wonderful counselor after him. We will offer counsel to people, his way of living, his justice, his righteousness. We will be mighty like God. How will we do that? Well, we will stand for the justice. We will stand up for the oppressed. We will proclaim healing in the name of Jesus Christ to those who are sick. We will be fathers to the fatherless, male and female. We will look at the people that we mix with and meet with at Christmas, and we will seek to father them. We will be bringers of peace, princes and princesses of peace. Is it possible as you head into your Christmas situation, whatever it's looking like, that you might be able to, that I might be able to, choose to bring peace so that we are the light of the world, following the one great light who illumines the darkness? We walk by the light now. How long? Well, Paul says in Romans, the night is far spent and the day is at hand. It's not long. And what are we waiting for? Well, we're waiting for the new heaven and the new earth. And Revelation, as I close, tells us what this is going to be like. Revelation 21:23 says this. This is the city of God that he's going to bring when he returns. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. He's a bringer of life. May we be bringers of life this Christmas. Amen. Shall we stand to respond?